Well, government plans to spend over 150 billion rand of its climate funding on renewable energy projects. The move will accelerate the country's transition away from coal towards clean energy and to see the closure of coal plants. Joining us now is John Green, Chief Commercial Officer at 91. John, a very good afternoon to you. You're in fact, speaking to us today from Sharm el-Sheikh, where the COP27 summit is happening. Are you more optimistic going into this one than previous ones? Because often they've been criticized for being more talk than action.
Yes, good afternoon, Timothy. Lovely to be on the show and to talk about, I think, this really important topic. Not only is it important for the world, I think it's important for all countries. Yes, I am more optimistic. I think the gathering together of the influential decision makers across the public and the private sector is what COP achieves. And we gather together to debate and discuss these very important issues of how to find a way to invest productively for a net zero world in 2050. What policy is required, what commitment from the private sector is required, and how to balance all of those things. And so, yes, I am optimistic. I think there's going to be some tough discussions, and the developing world and emerging market economies and the role they play is one of those very topical points at the moment. And so it's good to see the focus.
So for a country like South Africa, I mean, we were listening earlier this morning to comments by the Energy Minister, Gwede Mantashe, for instance, who was saying, while a just energy transition is needed, it cannot be done, for example, at the expense of mining-dependent communities where coal is mined. You've also got a situation where when you look at access to energy, clean energy, not every South African, even now, has access to basic electricity. So can we really move to the level of an advanced just transition conversation until we've got the basics right?
Well, I think the fantastic thing is that, renewable energy actually solves two problems at once. It solves the problem of a carbon-heavy energy system, but it also solves the problem of very quickly being able to deploy and generate meaningful amounts of energy. It takes a lot shorter to build and commission renewable energy systems than it does to build and commission coal systems. We know that our current coal fleet is running at an energy availability factor of, in the mid-60s. That means that 35% of our coal-fired power generation is not working at any one point in time. So you need this energy not only to build a future that is carbon light, but also to address the problems that we face as a country right now. So I think that balance is something that is inherent in the pursuit of this objective, and it's a fantastic opportunity not only to have an impact on the world, but to have an impact on our situation in South Africa. If we could only just get the system and the red tape to work.
Are we moving fast enough then in that direction, especially as you were just referencing the issue of red tape, which government has now sought to address as far as the introduction of renewable energy suppliers, providers, I should say, into the Eskom energy mix and broader electricity solution, shall we say?
Yeah, we'd always look at the situation in South Africa as it is today and say we're not moving fast enough. Nobody could conclude that we're moving fast enough. So I think my answer to that would be absolutely not. I mean, take for example, since the government took the very important step of removing the cap on private generation for self-use, there's something like 89 projects that have been assessed, have been verified by the private sector, particularly in the mining and mineral sector, involving 27 companies and needing about 100 billion rand to fund. And all of that funding, by the way, will come from the private sector, I would imagine. But many of those projects, in fact, most of them, not one of them has started yet. Many of them are caught up in the red tape of accessing the grid and being signed off by the organizations that need to sign them off. So we need to up the capacity and the capability to do that more quickly. And if we do, we can have an impact. Those projects on their own can deliver, somewhere between 6 and 8 gigawatts of power, which is what Eskom is saying we're running short of at the moment. So Why wouldn't you move faster?
You mentioned the role of the private sector in investing and responding to the climate emergency. There's been criticism of the West and developed nations to say that when their corporates are benefiting from quote-unquote dirty energy, there wasn't this pressure on the likes of South Africa and the rest of the developing world to basically cut out coal almost immediately and make all these other changes, and that until they do their fair bit, we're not going to make progress, even if countries in our part of the world were to say cut down on coal altogether.
Yeah, and that's a very important topic and a very charged conversation that's happening. The developed world has the emerging world has only contributed 1/7 of the world's stock of greenhouse gases, and today is responsible for 50% of the world's emissions. And so the world is looking to the emerging markets to do something about that. I think playing a tit-for-tat game on this is not productive. The point is that it's actually a really significant opportunity, not only for us in South Africa, for example, to generate more electricity because we can't, keep the lights on, but also for countries like, one of our next door neighbors, Namibia, who is using this opportunity to create a significant economic growth plan around green hydrogen. There are meaningful opportunities for emerging markets to engage in this transition in a way that's productive for them, as opposed to necessarily feeling that they're being forced to do things by the West. The point is this process, this journey towards a decarbonized society is something we all know is important, and we can benefit from it as South Africans and as emerging markets. We've just got to be smart about how we pursue that.
John Green, good to speak to you from Sharm el-Sheikh, where the COP27 summit is taking place this year. Thank you.